Over the last 2 years, in order to scale my agencies to six figures, I've had to pull some ridiculous hours at times. I've had to work 16-hour days, I've had to work weekends, and I'm not saying any of this out of bravado. I didn't do it to show off, I did it out of necessity because social media marketing, advertising, or any other agency based business, this business model can be pretty intensive. And so, in order to scale a business, in order to start a business on the side of maybe your job, that was my case, or full time education, whether you're in school or in college, you're going to need to work some ridiculous hours at times. And you're going to have to be okay with it and also expect that this is going to be happening, because otherwise, realistically, it's unlikely that you're going to succeed. We have a couple of other advices that are kind of conflicting with this, which is start with a partner and basically split the load. And that holds true 100%. But quite transparently, even with a partner, at times, we still have to work 14-hour days and we're okay with it. Now, the reason why this is a topic that's pretty important and significant for me personally, it's because I've gone from procrastination and lack of clarity and inability to focus and to embrace and love the grind to someone who's now borderline workaholic and cannot actually shake it off. So I'm kind of falling into the other extreme. And the reason why this is something that you're going to want to understand is because at the end of the day, we drop to the level of our systems. We don't rise to the level of our standards and expectations. So you can say that you want to make 10K per month. You can say that you want to make 100K per month, a mil a month, whatever goal you have, you're going to have to grind somewhere, whether it's going to be in building a product, in operations, or in scaling with marketing and with acquisition. There will be work. There will be work to be done. And personally, I've always had a sort of aversion and lack of tolerance for weakness, for people who say they're going to do something and they don't actually do it, for people who don't walk the walk. Because at the end of the day, the most important thing that I want to see is people being actualized, people being capable of saying, I want to do this and I'm going to go after it. There's nothing worse, in my opinion, than someone who says that they want to do something, who know themselves to be capable of doing it, and then for some reason they don't have it in them, they don't find it in them to actually actualize their dreams, to make them happen. And so for me personally, the biggest change, the biggest shift was embracing systems and recognizing that we again rise to the level of we fall to the level of our systems. What does that look like to me? It looks like a calendar. I prefer to use a calendar over a list because the calendar gives me the constraint of time. It gives me basically a day ahead, which I plan it the night before, where I have every action planned to the minute. And that way I am always racing the clock. And that gives me absolute clear focus. I don't deviate, I don't get sidetracked because I know that I'm racing my calendar to the end of the day. And you can use Notion, you can use Google Calendar, you can use whatever tool you want, as long as it gives you the granular ability to target, to schedule your day by the minute without exaggeration. It also enables you to get quicker and better at determining how long things are going to take. Because in planning, in project management, I used to work in project management, in engineering. The biggest fallacy is that of planning, where projects tend to blow out of scope and then they basically end up taking 2 times, 3 times, 4 times more than they should take, and also cost 2 to 10 times more than they should cost. And that's because of planning fallacies, because we think things take less than they actually will. But the reality is that activities will expand. What is that? Pareto's law? They will expand, or Parkinson's law. They expand to take the demand that you basically allocate to them, which is why we procrastinate. Do tomorrow. And basically planning these things and forcing yourself to get them done in a quick time frame will make you get them done good enough. Or at least it will start combating perfectionism. It will start preventing you from going off the rails, spending a whole day making a website, making a landing page, making some ads. You know the things that you should be doing based on the hierarchy of importance, right? You should have a matrix of urgent and important, urgent and not important, non-urgent, not important, urgent and non-urgent. You know that matrix? If you don't know it, I will put a diagram of it. The point of the matter is that when you're running a business, when you're scaling a business, you have all these things that demand your attention, and you're going to want to put them in your calendar, schedule them out in a way where you're tackling the most important things first and the revenue generating activities. You're still going to need to do the other things as well, but having them all in your calendar laid out is going to basically help you stay focused. This video is not about planning. This video is not about productivity. This is about how to actually get yourself to work all the hours that are required and actually enjoy it. And this is where the two topics actually interface slightly, because in our head we look at tasks and we think they're going to take less than they normally do, but that's once we've made up our mind that we're going to be doing them. And bear with me because this is a bit confusing. Think about the things that you procrastinate on, the ones that you don't do. One of the reasons why you don't do them is the opposite effect of what I just outlined, which is you think that actually they'll take longer and then they'll be harder than they actually will be. And that's why you keep pushing them into the future. When you actually sit down and think about realistically how long that's going to take, and you allocated the realistic task amount, let's say 20 minutes for a email backend sequence update or whatever that may be, and you put it in there, and then you add the next task to it, and then the next task to it, whether it's making some new creatives for your clients, whether it's reviewing some sales calls, creating a new VSL, things that normal people take weeks to create, you actually realize how much time you have in that day and how easy these things are, one by one, piece by piece. At this point, my partner and I have built hundreds of funnels, hundreds of campaigns, thousands of ads, and backend automations and everything in between. And so we have desensitized ourselves to what work looks like and our relationship with hard work, because it gets better with time. You get to enjoy it. And that is my next point. Tolerance grows. The more work you do, the more you expose yourself to it. Call it gradual desensitization if you want. Just don't expect this to happen overnight. Don't expect to sit down at your desk the first day you decide to make a change and find new levels of motivation and focus and drive and grit and all of that, because it's not going to happen. It's going to be a gradual process, and you're going to want to constantly push more, just like working in the gym, just like any other thing that you want to get better at. Now, another core tenet of mine has been the dopamine detox. This is something I started when it was trendy years ago, when I realized that the only way in life is you either produce or you consume. You're either at the cause or at the effect. And I've always wanted, I had a big issue with being a mindless consumer. When I consume now, I still do. I watch Netflix, I relax. When I have to, I do it tactically and strategically. So at the end of the day, when my output drops to the point where I can no longer push, I sometimes try and push past that by 1 hour, by 2 hours. I want to get those last reps in. But the point of absolute diminishing returns is when I recognize it, call it a day, and I tactically and strategically go and take some downtime. And I do that because I want to prevent a complete burnout. I want to avoid a complete period of downtime. I don't want that, because that's going to ultimately hurt me even more so than an hour or two of Netflix every couple of days, or maybe a longer period in a weekend or every other weekend, whatever I actually can allow myself. And so I'm not saying that you'll relinquish and drop consumption entirely, but you have to switch those things around. Like, do you know your time now? Do you know the time that you spend on social media? Do you know the time you spend on Netflix? Do you know how much time you spend socializing? Whatever other activities you do, you should be very rigorous with your timelines, with your calendars. Plan everything out, map them out, and realize that there are 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Was that 164 hours in a week? 168. You basically have way more time than you think you do. And when you think about the tasks that you want to do in one day, then realize that if you started planning that day meticulously, you don't even need to go into 14-hour territory. If you're working a full-time job and you're thinking you'll get home and you'll be knackered, whatever that's going to happen, just realize that you don't need to go from zero to hero overnight. You can just start putting in your 1 hour a days, your 2 hour a days, but plan them ahead. And when it comes to it, make sure you don't have distractions. This is a bigger conversation around eliminating more so than adding. A lot of times procrastination and productivity are a matter of subtraction rather than addition, where you will have to say more no's than you will have to say yeses. But the beauty of it is that once you remove all the things that you'd have to constantly say no to and resist, such as your smartphone, keep your smartphone away, block all of your notifications, lose a bunch of friends if you have to, just outright stop talking to some friends. I know it sounds horrible, I know it sounds extreme, but it's required, because if something is there pulling you constantly back in, you're gonna constantly have to exert your willpower to say no to those things, and you can only do it so many times before you fall off the bandwagon. Whereas if you deliberately cut out all of that stuff, like they say, disappear for 6 months and build, then you're gonna work by default. You're gonna work because you'll have nothing else better to do, and that's where it gets fun, because you get to enjoy it. You get to enjoy it, and you get to hook your dopamine reward systems on your actual inputs, on your actual you showing up and putting that next pearl on the string, right? And that's where you want to get to, because that reshapes your identity as someone who's a productive workhorse. I take a lot of ego and pride in my ability to brute force things into existence by hard work, and I know you can and you should work smart by all means. You should pull as many levers as you can to make money as easily and effortless as you can. Money don't care how hard you work to get them, right? But when push comes to shove, knowing yourself as someone who shows up and does what they say they do, have integrity to hold your word, and to actually deliver what's being asked of you, is going to give you unshakable confidence and belief to start taking big risks, to quit your job, to drop out of school, whatever that may be. You don't need external structures to tell you what to do and when to do them. You tell yourself what to do and when to do it. And that is priceless. To me, that's absolutely priceless. It's not even about the money, although it is. It's about knowing yourself to be a force to be reckoned with. Why do it? Why do all of this in the first place? Why learn to love working 7 days a week, 14 hours a day? Because you need to. Because you need to if you don't want to be outworked. And it's labor intensive. Agency models are some of the easiest things to scale, the simplest things to scale, but they're not easy. But they'll guarantee you, they'll get you to 10K, to 100K, probably the easiest way, I would say. And with the least kind of risk involved, because it's such a proven model, kids pull it off. And there's so many agencies and so many services to offer through an agency that it's quite literally one of the best beginner models to start learning business, to start learning self-control, self-mastery, which is even more important than the business acumen. At the end of the day, we don't have business problems. We have us problems, we have people problems that we bring into the business, and we make them business problems. A lot of times, the issues of a business are a reflection of the person behind them, the entrepreneur behind them. And so finally, to drive this point home, this is a bit of a woo-woo perspective. Essentially, the reason why I love being a productive entrepreneur, and why I've always wanted to be engrossed in something, enmeshed into building and creating something rather than just consuming stuff, is because I want to play an infinite game with awesome people. What do I mean by that? Is we all seek connection, we all seek validation, we all seek approval, and we seek progress. We seek to be good at something and to be recognized for doing that. And so at the end of the day, wouldn't you rather build a business, make money, be productive, a useful member of the community, give back to your community in a way where you add value in people's lives? Because the money you make is always a reflection of how much value you add in someone else's life, how many problems, and the magnitude of those problems. So wouldn't you rather do that instead of going out in hedonistic pursuits, drinking, partying, all of that stuff, right? It's a no-brainer to me. And the reason for that is because one is ending. One is not self-sustainable, not to infinity, not to the end. If you take this argument to its extreme conclusion, you can only party so much, you can only consume so much before you mess yourself up, before you ruin your health, before you basically cannot do it anymore. And if it's not a self-refreshing, an infinite game, then why play it in the first place? Why bother? So that's why I think aligning yourself to business, aligning yourself to work and to being productive, shifting away from a consumerist mindset to a productive mindset is ultimately the best step to actualization, to satisfaction, to a rewarding lifestyle. So I hope this is useful, and keep it up. Until next time.